All right, welcome in a March 31st, 2025 post 400-point Derby prep edition of the BloodHorse Monday. My name's Louie, hanging out with Sean Collins. The studio doesn't have a name yet. It needs a name at some point. Sean, I just haven't named it.
BloodHorse Monday Studios.
Is it the BloodHorse Monday Studios? Is that where
it could be that simple.
Why not? There you go. But a couple of preps this weekend. Sean made the trip to Arkansas. We'll talk about that one second. But of course, we'll get into the Florida Derby first. Sean, I'm at the point, I do a little bit of writing and, reflecting on the Derby trail and those kinds of things. And I'm trying to figure out where it is that I land on these horses. And if I've seen the Derby winner in a 100-point prep yet, right? These kinds of questions. And we've seen the last couple of years with a Mage, with a Mystic Dan, you don't have to be a winner of a 100-point race to pick off the Kentucky Derby. It's just that kind of race. And so obviously a Sovereignty runs second. We ask those kinds of questions whenever someone runs second in the Florida Derby, with Mage, especially recently. But I thought we saw some performances that at least didn't disqualify anyone that was on the Derby trail.
I agree. Both in Florida and in Arkansas, I thought really the top three finishers in both races ran phenomenal races. We'll see. I know E009 in the Florida Derby. I'm not sure if he'll get in points wise, but he ran a sneaky good race.
Yes, he did.
I didn't lose any faith in Sovereignty the way he ran second. Tappan Street looked good, and same thing over at the horses in Arkansas. All three looked good.
Yeah, let's head down to Florida for the first prep that we will be looking at here. Here's Pete Aiello on the sound of the Grade 1.
For a move now is Louie Saez on Tappan Street. He strides into third. On his back, it's the favorite Sovereignty, who warms to the task within 5 lengths of the lead. They move by 3/4 in 1:11 and 3. They're a quarter of a mile from home. It's still the sitting chilly Mike Smith on Mataquette Road. Zayas all over E009, and Tappan Street swung to their center of the racetrack. They're an 1/8 of a mile from home. Here comes Tappan Street, surging forward now to take the lead. Sovereignty runs at him from the outside with a 16th to go. If you're looking for a shortcut to Louisville, take a ride on Tappan Street. He wins the Florida Derby by a 1.5 lengths.
Few people pull lines like that over wins better than Pete Aiello. By few people, I mean no one does it better than Pete Aiello.
I know he's really good at just kind of pulling those kind of.
Yeah, can I ask it like a really important question here? Tappan Street or Tappan? Like, is he messing with us? Does he know something we don't know? Did I not just talk to Brad Cox a week ago at this time and say Tappan Street out loud and not get corrected by Brad Cox?
And we talked to Elliot Walden ago about Tappan Street, and they didn't correct us. So I don't know what to call him now, how to get to this. Is it Tappan? Is it Tappan? I think maybe we should alternate every time we bring up his name.
We see the top two in that race finish out, by the way. And I want to push back on one thing that you said earlier, and I'll do it in a second, but the top two finishers in this race between Tappan, whatever street, the 9 horse. And look, we get Sovereignty in here. I don't think he ran any differently than what we expected him to run. No. Right? He's going to do this. The hope is, if you're a Sovereignty fan, the extra furlong at Churchill Downs will be the difference. That long stretch compared to that shorter stretch that we see at Gulfstream Park will be the difference for a horse like Sovereignty. But there's nothing to dislike about what Tappan Street did here. Exactly. Nothing at all. And if you're telling me that he would not get overtaken by a Sovereignty in the stretch, I would actually believe you. If he gets better as we move forward, this is his first time ever going 1 1/8. He was up to the task. Watch E009 in this race. This is where I disagree with you.
Yeah.
He lugged all the way to the rail there, right on that turn. Tappan Street didn't do that. This is only his second time routing. I was very, very impressed. Nothing to dislike about Sovereignty in this one, though. I think those two will be out. I'll go ahead and I'll be a little bold here. Both of them in the top 4 betting favorites in the Kentucky Derby.
I could definitely see that. And with, Sovereignty, he never looked like at any point he wasn't like closing. It looks like they keep going. Like he's still got that same motion we always see.
Yes.
Yeah, he still ran the exact same race. It was just Tappan Street was ahead of him. Tappan Street got the jump on him, and Tappan Street didn't stop.
Correct.
Would he stop if the race was an 1/8 of a mile longer? We'll find out in a couple of weeks. But I do think both of them were really strong performances. The interesting thing about this is I feel like just a lot of people in their minds heading into this race already think of Sovereignty as that 1 1/4 horse.
Yes.
I wonder which of these two ends up being lower odds in the Kentucky Derby.
I think it'll be Sovereignty at the end of the day.
I think so too, because I think a lot of people are going to look at that extra furlong. Sovereignty was still coming, and they'll kind of go with him as kind of the better or the more likely choice between him and Tappan Street. But I feel like Tappan Street, the way that it looks like the Derby is setting up right now from a pace scenario, I feel like he's going to be in the better spot. And if he can replicate that, if he can go the extra 1/8 of a mile, I really like his chances on the first.
Yeah, it appears there's going to be plenty of speed in this one for sure. An interesting fact, FACT, about the Florida Derby was the one horse of the 3 favorites that didn't switch jockeys ended up winning the race.
And that is true.
And I know it's horse racing and not jockey racing. So I'm going to give Sovereignty even a little bit more of a pass because that was Manny Franco's first attempt with the horse. Timing a deep closer like that is more difficult, in my opinion, than what Mike Smith had to do by raiding on the front with Matticat Road, for example, right? Matticat Road just wasn't ready. It's okay. That part is fine. Neo Equos was the better horse on Saturday. It's not even a question. But with Sovereignty, not worried about it. I think once we get back to normal connections, if Junior can ride and all those things, he'll be just fine.
Yeah, if Junior can end up being on him by the time,
or Manny for a second time because he'll know the horse a little bit better. It wasn't a bad ride by Manny Franco. I want to be really clear about that. Not at all. But rather just trying to time that finish like that when you've been riding at Aqueduct the whole time, never been on that horse before. It was still a very good second. And, I see a lot of complaining right now in the general sports world about an all 1 seeds Final Four, for example. We're getting a lot of 1 seeds in this Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, we are.
That's, you know what? That's awesome. Just give me the 20 best horses we got that happen to be 3-year-olds.
Where you want that to happen.
Correct. Yes, right.
It's
Just
more
give me all the best
exciting when
horses.
you have all the best ones.
I'm with you. So.
I would love to have a year in the NCAA tournament where we could have all 16 teams in the Final Four, but that'll probably never happen. But in the Derby, you want all the best horses there. I think we definitely saw the best horses that were running this past Saturday qualify this past Saturday.
Are you surprised at all Saturday night, first Saturday in May, if either of those 2 horses is the winner of the Kentucky Derby?
Not at all.
I am not either. Okay, let's go to Arkansas. Excuse me. We leave Florida now. I had slightly west to Hot Springs. Here, our guy Matt Ditterman on the call to Grade 1 Arkansas Derby.
As they round the 4th turn, it's Cornucopian Speed King coming back to the group. Here's Sandman threatening to run a big one, and Cole Battle, Speed King's done. Cornucopian, the dirt has turned into quicksand. He's done as they come to the top of the stretch here. Cole Battle, Sandman going at it, and Publisher trying to break his maiden in the Arkansas Derby. Cole Battle has lost the lead to Sandman. Publisher, the only threat to beat him. Sandman, he's green, drifting around here. It's Sandman in front by 2. Publisher is second. And Sandman, he's run his A race, and he gets a confidence booster heading to Kentucky.
Of course, our guy, literally our guy, Matt Ditterman. We really love Matt down there at Oakland Park. Boy. Okay, so you're not a dad yet, Sean. I don't know if that's something you ever want to do with your life. If you want to be bald and look like me, I definitely suggest it. So the
is that a requirement?
It is a requirement.
Hair?
Sorry, Don. It's just you get to keep the beard, and you've got a better beard than me, so at least you got that going. But that horse, when he's dancing in the stretch, when he does that little dip to the right. Your kids, once in a while, you'll catch them playing or riding a bike or doing something, and they have to self-correct all of a sudden in a moment, but they do it. So like when your kids learning to ride a bike, or maybe they're shooting hoops, they're learning their free throw stuff with this horse, you're watching these 3-year-olds get this kind of experience and these kinds of things. It was just, I thought of my own kids when I watched him kind of do the little side step in the stretch there. But frankly, once he's straightened out, that's a great run. How many times are we going to run second?
Exactly.
How many times are we going to run second at some point? At some point, I'm sure Frank would agree. You got to win these races at some point.
Yeah. But, you looked at when he made that move in the stretch. I think, was it just he got surprised kind of being in the lead? He has had several races now where he has not gotten up to the lead, and he had no one else to pass pretty early.
And no one to run next to, right? A lot of horses do want to be pack animals. They want to run alongside. He had nothing to do. He's all by himself for sure. Yeah.
The part that I really liked about it is he didn't really lose any ground when he did it.
Correct.
And when he straightened out, like he maintained that margin over Publisher.
Oh boy. Yeah. Look at it. You can even see him move his own head right to the left. Like, okay, I got to get back in that lane. It's almost like he knew which lane to be in.
Publisher kept trying, but as they come to the wire here, that margin's not getting any shorter between the two of them. So that's what I really liked, is the fact that when he course corrected, he didn't really give up any of that margin that he had over Publisher. If they had gone another 1/8 of a mile, if they had gone that 1.25 miles, I don't think Publisher would have caught him. I think Sandman would have been all right going with that. So it was nice to see him finally break through and win this race. I know I mentioned to you before, there were a couple races last year as a 2-year-old at Churchill where I had been hearing like, he's this really good horse, and he ended up disappointing.
Right.
I was kind of starting to jump off his bandwagon a little bit. Now he finally broke through. He finally got that win, and at the right time, getting the Grade 1, going forward to the Derby now is probably one of the top contenders. I thought that was a really good performance.
One less Baffert than we thought potentially in the Kentucky Derby, starting gate with Cornucopian's finish. Is he a Pat Day Mile horse to you, or would you wait till the Preakness with him, you think?
I would wait till the Preakness.
Okay.
I don't think it was, the way that
Pace
the
was
race
absurd.
unfolded.
I mean, that's absurd.
I know. I would have loved to see Velazquez ease off of Speed King and just for them to kind of relax it and seeing what would have happened. I think Cornucopian will be fine going the mile and 3/16,
Especially at Pimlico.
Yeah, I think that would be right up his alley. But at the same time, you know, when you come off a race like that in mile and 1/8, do you just cut back to the mile for a Pat Day mile or go to a different spot, stay out there in California just to kind of get him back on the right track?
The other option is this isn't a 1.5 miles Belmont. We're
That's
still
true.
at 1.25 miles at Saratoga. You could go run that Pat Day mile and then skip to the Belmont and give your horses a very regular amount of time off between races as far as Baffert's concerned. So he's an interesting one. Speed King, though, by the way, massive. They absolutely need to put that horse in the Pat Day mile. I think he would be terrific there.
I want to see him in the Preakness.
Okay.
With not a lot of pace competition. I think he's one of those horses. A lot of people are going to jump off of him because of the last 2 races. I still have a lot of faith in that horse. I think if he gets into a race like the Preakness, there's not a lot of pace in there. I think he could sneak away with a race like that. But Cole Battle, we're talking a little bit about him before we got on here.
Good point.
He ran 3rd. I didn't lose any faith in him going forward to the Kentucky Derby. I still really like this horse.
And Lonnie Briley's comments after the race, the sheer candor and just openness about how he's training and what he's trying and all of those kinds of things, that's the good stuff, man. Yeah. I appreciate when trainers come on and they're just honest about it. And, you know, I've given Brian Lynch a little bit of a tough time on this show because I wonder with Owen Almighty if him mentioning the Pat Day mile tinged a bunch of us about the Derby rather than just whatever. But I appreciate Brian Lynch just saying it.
Yeah.
Right. That part too, right? Both things can be true. So I appreciate Lonnie Briley saying, look, we tried something different. He ran 3rd. We ain't doing that again. We're going to do something different for the Kentucky Derby. So I'm with you. I don't think a single thing less of the top 3 in Arkansas or the top 2 in Florida at all.
Yeah.
I just don't.
I
think
that. All 5 of those horses, I think I could see all 5 of them putting it together, running big on the first Saturday.
I totally agree. And by the way, you will find many of those horses at the OBS sale coming up here. The seeds of success, they're planted in the spring. And nowhere do buds of talent bloom more than at the OBS April sale of 2-year-olds in training. 9 graduates from OBS April have won Grade 1 races since 2024, including the Champaign and Hopeful Stakes. The most recent, of course, Cavalieri winning the prestigious Beholder Mile. The 2-year-old source to the world is fertile ground for victory. See who blossoms next at the OBS Spring Sale, April 15th through 18th. And someone who has had plenty of good success at the OBS sales is David Fiske. He is the racing manager for Winchell Thoroughbreds, and of course, a part of the connections with Tiztastic. David, good afternoon to you, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon to you guys.
So good to have you here on BloodHorse Monday. We appreciate you making time. These backdrops, these guys, look at the brickwork there. That beautiful.
Much better than our backdrop.
He's got statues. Sure. I mean, we're living.
You guys look like you're in a phone booth.
You don't see. Let me just dial the phone real quick.
Have you ever had to actually dial a phone? Are you old enough to have dialed a phone?
No, I don't.
Okay, all right, there you go. Okay, so yeah, thank you. Yeah, David's my guy. People that remember the '80s. How about that? There you go.
Yeah.
Look, off of 5th in the Rebel, you make a decision to run Tiztastic at the fairgrounds, and look, congratulations, by the way. It's spectacular.
Thank you.
In that Louisiana Derby. I'm sure you never get tired of those kinds of performances. What went into that decision-making process, though, to ship him to the fairgrounds?
He'd been training at the fairgrounds. In fact, Magnitude was his workmate. And so we always thought that, he was a good horse. I mean, he'd run well at Kentucky Downs last year, which was a little bit of a surprise. Ran him back, 10 days apart, won 2 races at the meet. In fact, somebody asked me the other day how many horses had won $1 million races on dirt and turf.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there can't be that many. But he went up to Oaklawn because Magnitude was at the fairgrounds and we wanted to split them up. And Steve just thought he trained better at the fairgrounds. And so after Magnitude went to the sidelines, brought him back to the fairgrounds, see how he trains. Trained fabulously, and the proof was at the Louisiana Derby.
Well, I know this horse, on the Derby trail, he had a lot of seconds and thirds. He was always showing up in every single race from the 2-year-old season going into the 3-year-old season. How rewarding does it feel for you guys as a team when he finally breaks through, he gets the win on a big stage like the Louisiana Derby and gets set up so well for the Kentucky Derby?
There's a certain amount of, validation to your opinions going all the way back to the yearling sale. But like I said, we had a lot of confidence that he had a race like that in him. We just had to get the right circumstances.
David Fiske with us. He's the racing manager at Winchell Thoroughbreds. This is BloodHorse Monday. He's Sean. I'm Louie. Thanks for hanging out with us on a March 31st. It's not May. I can't do that yet.
You're
March
skipping
31st.
ahead.
Yeah, don't do that, Louie.
Don't put that much work
a great
on us
pace
already.
setup like Sean mentioned at the fairgrounds, that longer stretch. Do you think that'll translate to the longer stretch in the Derby run as well?
Sure. I mean, he's a horse that I think will run all day. I mean, he's bred 2x3 to Tappan, the greatest Belmont sire probably ever. And his sire won the Belmont. I know the Belmont this year is 1.25 miles. We used to joke that Tappan had not sired a Derby winner because the Derby's just too short. So, in any other year, maybe we'd be using the Derby as a prep for the Belmont. But, no, I think the way he's bred, the way he runs, his demeanor, I think the longer stretch at Churchill is certainly not a hindrance for him.
Now, you mentioned Magnitude earlier. He won the Risen Star so impressively. He comes out of the race with an injury and has to go on the sidelines. Just take us through the emotions of having that happen with one of your top choices, but then the team being able to bounce back now with Tiztastic and still be on the Kentucky Derby trail.
Well, it's devastating. People always talk about the highs and lows in horse racing, and we've been through a lot of those over the years. But to win the way he did in the Risen Star, it was just exciting. Randy Moss thought it was maybe the fastest any 3-year-old had ever run at the fairgrounds, and it wasn't just the margin, and it wasn't just he was our horse. He was just exciting. And you think, oh boy, we're on our way to Louisville. And then Tuesday comes out of the stall and he's a little off, and he's got a little filling, and he's got a little chip, and it's like, well, time to regroup. But having Tiztastic in the wings, I don't want to diminish his ability at all, but he was working head and head with Magnitude. And then when Magnitude went to the sideline, Tiztastic's workmate turned out to be Clever Again, who was very impressive, winning the little listed stake at Ocala yesterday, which I think they gave him a 101 buyer for. Wow. So I think toward the end of the week, we'll put the band back together, and Tiztastic and Clever Again and Magnitude will all be at Churchill.
All right, Sean, there you go. New pictures, buddy.
I'm going to have a lot of work to do with my camera this week.
Over there at Churchill. Dave Fiske with us from the Winchell Thoroughbreds group. Tiztastic, man, you've got a partnership on with Coolmore with him, purchased him at the Keeneland September yearling sale last year. How did that partnership come to be? And what did you like when you saw him, Tiztastic in particular, as a yearling?
The partnership just kind of organically evolved when Ron and Mark Falcone bought Kentucky Downs. They had to go to a lot of racing commission meetings, and Charlie O'Connor was a member of the racing commission. Right. And they struck up a friendship. They just kept running into one another all the time. And so when it came time to retire Epicenter, once he survived his broken leg, the Coolmore people made a very good offer and a play for him. And so he went over to Ashford Coolmore to stand at stud. And then the next year, Gunite went over there. And then last year, it just seemed like a natural progression. Two of the horses, Tiztastic and Clever Again, are by Coolmore Stallions, Tiz the Law and American Pharaoh. And we own both of them in partnerships with Coolmore. So it was just kind of a natural progression, like I said.
Well, you mentioned the Kentucky Downs relation there with Ron Winchell. Tiztastic, he won twice last year at Kentucky Downs, including a stakes race. By the way, he beat Cole Battle in that stakes race.
No big deal.
So two Kentucky Derby horses coming out of Kentucky Downs. What does that mean, to Ron, to the team down there at Kentucky Downs? You don't usually think of that as the place that's going to produce Derby horses. So what does it mean to everybody down there to have a horse win the Louisiana Derby and have two horses now in the Kentucky Derby?
I don't think the significance can be downplayed at all. I mean, it's huge. I know that for the last couple of years, the publicity department at Kentucky Downs has made quite a deal out of how many horses that had raced at Kentucky Downs ran back in Breeders' Cup races. That it just enhances the credibility. I mean, Kentucky Downs has been around a long time. First it was dueling grounds, and it's gone through a lot of permutations. But since Ron and Mark, facilitated the purchase, its profile has just skyrocketed. And so, having horses, Derby caliber horses come out of that meet, it's just huge.
Lots of partnerships and work with a guy named Steve Asmussen, who we may have heard of or not, other than what is it, 10 million wins in North America? Is that what it is? 11 million? Outside of the obvious winning record, what is it about working with Steve that seems to work so well for your operation?
Well, I mean, there's a reason why he's in the Hall of Fame. That's, I mean, he's one of the best trainers ever. He's maybe one of the smartest people I know. We just have a lot of confidence and trust in him. That's developed over the years. I mean, we sent our first horses to him when he was still racing, when he's still training at Birmingham and, I don't know, Bandera Downs in Texas and that kind of thing. So I've got some pretty interesting win photos.
I can imagine.
That's a Bandera reference on this show, dude. I love that. That's fantastic.
Well, just tell us a little bit about your relationship with the Winchells. You've been working for them for a long time. Just kind of take us back through that.
I've been working for them forever. I actually was working at the BloodHorse when I got hired by the Winchells. And that was in July of 1980. Wow. So I've known Ron since he was 8. Which makes for, kind of an interesting, interesting work dynamic. I've worked for him practically my entire life.
I always want to ask about the great horses that have come through an operation. And you know where I'm going. One of my very, very favorites, the largest win bet I've ever placed. His name is Gunrunner. The journey with him, watching him progress and get better as he got older, in an era, David, where so many are off to sire at 3 and these kinds of things. We really got to know him. We got to watch him grow up, run incredible races, watch Steve Asmussen's sunglasses hit the floor, all the good things that come with all of the wins with him. Man, just 2 or 3 great memories from him, if you will.
Well, he was, I always used to refer to him as the Thrill. Just because, he just gave you a lot of thrills. And probably 4 of the best dinners I've ever been to were after Gunrunner races.
Positive, that's true.
They were just like the 2 at Saratoga, the Breeders' Cup, and then the Pegasus. Yeah. We pretty much wrecked Joe's Stone Crab that night down in Miami. But he was just a phenomenal horse and a phenomenal sire now.
I just have to say one of my favorite Gunrunner moments was the horseshoe getting stuck in the tail.
Yeah.
I loved that. That was one of my favorite things. I always love telling non-horse racing people about that story. I just think that was one of my favorite things.
Steve still has the horseshoe.
Does he? Good. You're gonna have to ask him to see that at some point. But other top horses, we mentioned him earlier, Tappan. He was a big one for you guys. He's obviously turned into a sensational sire. You mentioned earlier he still has not won the Kentucky Derby with one of his kids yet, even though he's had incredible Belmont success. Yeah. He was the sire of Sandman, who just won the Arkansas Derby this weekend. Is it safe to say that if they're coming down the stretch, looks like Tiztastic is not going to get up for the win, you guys will be perfectly happy and cheering if Sandman ends up getting that victory for Tappan?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm always all in on Team Tappet. I mean,
Hmm.
he is probably the best stallion of the first quarter of this century. He's done things that other stallions only hope to do. He's changed a lot of lives. I mean, if you go back and look, Gainesway did not have, at that point in time, they did not have a real deep stallion roster. And, Tappet's success raised their profile up, immensely. Plus, it changed a lot of lives. I mean, it changed my life. It changed Ron's life. He's just been the gift that keeps on giving. So, I can't say enough about him. I ran out of superlatives and adjectives for him, I don't know, 10 years ago.
I think that's probably the best superlative, is the fact that you've run out of superlatives.
Yeah, no, that's right.
probably
Yeah.
the best superlative you can give someone.
Oh man. Well, you've never been married, so you don't know, eventually your wife just comes out of bad things to call you, eventually. But he's David Fiske. He joined us from Winchell Thoroughbreds. We really appreciate him joining us here on BloodHorse Monday. Safe trips, safe training, all those things. Safe trip to Louisville for all the stuff, and good luck on the first Saturday of May.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
There you go. All right. Well, appreciate him jumping in. It is a thing. All of us have these horses that we love. I'll give a couple of off the wall ones that I really love. Palace Malice was one of those horses that I just freaking loved, and for whatever else. But Gunrunner is, if not the top of my favorite, very recently, of course, 2-turn, just what you're going to get. Awesome runners. I mean, he's way at the top of the list for me.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the better ones that we've seen in the last decade.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was proven by the fact he got inducted in the Hall of Fame. So that shows you there what, how good of a horse he was. But yeah, I always enjoyed watching him. I was a big fan of him when he was on the Derby trail early on in his 3-year-old season, winning all those races in Louisiana. So to see him, he danced every single dance during that season. He ran, the Derby. He came back. He was in the Haskell, the Travers, the Pennsylvania Derby, ran the Breeders' Cup, the Clark. And then he comes back the next year and has such a dominant year as a 4-year-old, caps it off with that Pegasus World Cup win. It was just such a, as he said, it was a thrill to watch that horse.
It's interesting too, because do you feel this way, like that Asmussen just doesn't get credit for being where he is in the sport for whatever reason?
It's almost like he's too successful. Everybody's just like, it's
right.
Steve. It's Steve.
And a horse like Gunrunner is such a nice reminder that, I mean, he did an unbelievable job with that horse. Obviously, the talent's there. I get all of it. I understand all of it. Just managing that horse's career. You mentioned all the races he ran as 3-year-old, and then he was better at 4 and 5. Yeah, it's just incredible. So yeah, no, I love that story. He was such an honest effort every time. Really, really, I do appreciate his career and all those things. But man, they are set up with some really interesting ones. Tiztastic, man, there's nothing to dislike about that performance.
No,
right. And so, like, if he can like that stretch and all those things, I think for sure part of the equation in the finish in the Kentucky Derby.
For sure.
Yeah.
I definitely think he's got a really good shot going into the Derby. The connections, they've been close a couple of times. They've almost won the Derby a couple of times. It would be great to see them finally break through and get that victory of a horse like this.
All right. Well, he's Sean Collins. I'm Louie. This is BloodHorse Monday. Let's go ahead. We'll do our weekly visit with Frank Angst now. Bring him in here on the BloodHorse feature. Part of ours, of course. Check out all of BloodHorse's stuff over at bloodhorse.com. You can find Frank over there as well. And man, Frank, we got plenty of stuff to talk about today, but I'm really excited because something I hear about a lot, doing this show and others from horse players is, man, I wish I had access to more information. And boy, you've got some really cool information that's going to be available at bloodhorse.com.
Yeah, one thing we've done at BloodHorse is, besides our own expert writers and videographers and photographers, so much expertise on the staff, is we're always willing to work with others too, if they have something to bring to the equation. And for years, of course, BloodHorse previews every graded stakes in North America.
Yep.
And one thing that we've added when we added the BloodHorse Daily newsletter, we update those previews when they go in the newsletter, because so many races draw so early now in the week. There's a little bit of a gap there. So we get those posted right away because people want to see the fields and what have you. And then we update them some when we add them to the daily, which is more typically on race day or maybe the day before race day. Right. So that brings us to the thing that we've added for our BloodHorse Daily previews. It's through an agreement with Thoro-Graph, we're getting analysis for one of the biggest races each week from them.
Awesome.
And of course, they're just so respected on the handicapping and the way that they size up a race. Even if you don't bet, it's really interesting information what they have to say about, it's usually a half dozen horses that they'll have a comment on, and
Awesome.
we're adding those to our previews.
Yeah, that's spectacular stuff. You hear about Thoro-Graph, you hear about these other numbers, Sean, that us who do bet, by the way, Frank, it's okay. We can bet on a race over here and there. But Thoro-Graph is incredible. It's just an incredible resource to be able to have that for free as part of BloodHorse Daily. I think is just spectacular, especially as we get into Keeneland season. There's so many stakes, especially, a front loaded meet coming up here, Frank. I'm sure that'll be included as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think we'll have a preview so we'll have one preview this weekend. I'm sure It'll be one of the 3 Derby prep races for sure. Last week they did Arkansas Derby, and it was interesting what they said about Sandman. They really like the way that he's developing. And one of their comments was he's not the fastest going into the Arkansas Derby, but he's the most likely to run his race, which kind of played out because, that the fastest number, just looking at any number, was Cornucopian, who was stretching out. And they had some concerns about would he be able to stretch out and match that number, which he didn't, is the way it played out. There was some reasons for that, the speed duel up front,
Sure.
but he faded. But Sandman very much ran his race and probably improved a little bit too. We'll see what the numbers say after that. But strong race. It's noted that the Coal Battle has kind of improved each time out. Perhaps I haven't seen the final numbers from Saturday, but he might have taken a step back there. But they don't discount his ability to come right back. Kind of just the way it's worded, you read it, and it's pretty clear they still like his chances for the Derby. I mean, this was written ahead of the Arkansas Derby, but even so, because they had some concerns on if he'd be able to come back strongly in the Arkansas Derby, saying that it was kind of a big jump in a short time, that he took a big jump in a short time frame in the Rebel. But they said this could be a stepping stone to another forward move. So we know what race is next for him.
Yeah, that's right. But this is where I think this kind of analysis is interesting, because one of the grand questions in handicapping is, was the step forward legitimate or was it a one-off? Right? We ask those questions all the time, especially with 3-year-olds. And so to get another opinion from a Thoro-Graph or something like that and get it for free, frankly, is awesome. Just get more information that way, Frank. Like you mentioned.
And we link to anyone that likes what they're reading and wants to read more. We have a link to Thoro-Graph and what you can find out what all they're about and see if it's worth your while to dig in even deeper. But some good analysis that we're excited to bring to our readers for sure.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think it makes sense for what BloodHorse is and does, that to include someone like Thoro-Graph. In that you have been the president of the Coal Battle, just absolute president of the fan club. Frank, what did you think on Saturday? And it changed your opinion about the Kentucky Derby at all?
I mean, I still think he's a top Kentucky Derby contender. With the loss, I couldn't keep him at number 1 atop my NTRA 3-year-old poll, but I liked the way he ran. It was kind of a strange race with the 2 drawing off so far, and then you sort of have to time when you're going to go. You don't want to get so far back that it becomes a 2-horse race. To me, what I liked about Coal Battle is he still made his move. He made his move and he went to the lead for a few strides, and then some of the other late closers came and got him, and that's all part of racing. But I think he can improve off of that for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And he was, a little worked up in the paddock, it looked like ahead of time when I was down there.
Huge crowd.
Yeah, and it's an awkward paddock because they're up above you.
Yes.
It's something where, you kind of look at that as a good prep for the Derby, kind of get him used to something that's a little out of the ordinary like that. And I think he'll be more relaxed for the Derby. But as Frank said, I really liked the way that he still made that move. He still came. I think he's going to get a perfect stalking position in the Kentucky Derby itself. I think he's going to be sitting in that kind of perfect zone that you've seen, the American Pharaohs and the Nyquist sit in, off the pace. And I think that he could definitely still be set up for a big run. And it sounds like the Thoro-Graph numbers were kind of predicting that as well.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I think too, in a year with so many deep closers having won the early races, right? At Turfway, at, with a Sovereignty who's going to be coming from way, way off the pace. Horse like Coal Battle or Tappan Street, frankly, as pressers, right? Being just off the pace could really benefit Frank.
I mean, that's really what I'm thinking, because I think some of these early on in some of these preps, we were seeing horses go gate to wire and what have you. Some of those horses have fallen by the wayside, so it'll be interesting to see who's left in terms of pace. But right now, if I had to pick a running style, and of course this goes for 90% of dirt racing in America, you want the presser. That's kind of what wins a good chunk of these races. But the horses you mentioned, then along with Tiztastic, that's his running style as well. Yep. So I do think that, right now, very much in theory, that's where you would want to be. With Coal Battle being defeated, I had to put a new horse on top. It wasn't too hard. I just moved my number 2 Journalism into the number 1 slot. We'll see how he runs Saturday.
Yep.
Been very impressed with the Oaklawn circuit this year, so I went ahead and put Sandman 2nd and Tappan Street 3rd. I think you guys were talking about it earlier. I think because of Tappan and the pedigree, I would think Tappan Street, but we'll leave it to the people that named him.
I've been told it was Tappan, and by Tappan I mean it's Aiello's fault at this point, right? Yeah. Just get away from that. But there you go. Who was your top 5 then on the 3-year-old side?
Oh yeah, so Journalism, Sandman, Tappan Street, Citizen Bull, Coal Battle.
Okay, and so we'll see some of those this weekend. You mentioned Journalism. You mentioned a Citizen Bull. I'm doing spots in LA this week ahead of the Santa Anita Derby, which is always very fun. And I'm just going to tell people, you don't have to know a thing about horse racing to watch the Santa Anita Derby and watch 3 horses that have very distinct styles try to win that race. You're going to have Citizen Bull on the front, period.
Yep.
You're going to have Journalism right behind him, period. And then you're going to have Barnes trying to stay right next to Journalism is essentially what you're going to have. And it's not going to be difficult to figure out. Either Citizen Bull's going to get that lead and he's going to do the Baffert thing and rally and be great in the stretch, or you're going to get Journalism being Journalism. Yeah. Frankly, I think the Santa Anita Derby just sets up as a clash of styles, Frank, that is going to be so fun. I think that race is just set up to be really great.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody in the industry is pulling for Southern California right now. We want things. Right. It's been such a foundational piece of the sport for so long, the racing there. Yep. So it's great that they're getting really good horses this year. You'd like the field to be a bit deeper, but hey, you got some big colts running for take the next step to the Kentucky Derby and winning this. I always bring this up: winning the Florida Derby, winning the Santa Anita Derby, winning the Louisiana Derby. These are races you want to win to begin with. So right. Yeah. They can't take them away from you. Once you got those in the books, the horse has that accomplished. It's going to be meaningful. If they go on the stud, when they go on the stud as colts, once in a while you have a gelding in there, but they're huge wins, races that everybody wants to win. It only gets bigger for the classics, but these are big races too.
Did you change up your NTRAs for other divisions at all? Did a White Abario move up at all with his?
No, I kept him 2nd.
Okay.
I mean, on the male side, he's definitely been the dominant horse so far this year. I just feel like Torpedo Anna was last year's horse of the year, and she won her debut. So I have her at number 1 still. Yeah, I didn't touch that side of things for this week.
There you go. And just as we get into these races, we asked about a cornucopian and that kind of stuff as well, Frank. Do you think what Sean said is true and they'll try him in more like a Preakness, or do you think a Pat Day Mile and then a Belmont kind of makes more sense for him?
I mean, I think the Preakness makes sense for both of those horses that were on the lead in the Arkansas Derby. You have nothing but options this time of year. I kind of like what you said too, is you could prep in the Pat Day and then go in the Belmont Stakes, which is 1.25 miles.
Yeah.
You could prep in the Pat Day and go to the Preakness, as we saw just last year. That worked very well.
That's right,
So, I think the horsemen that are involved with these horses, they're going to make a far better decision than any of us.
Yeah,
they're the ones that are there every day. And we're talking about Hall of Famers and Ron Marquette. And these guys know what they're doing for sure.
What are you saying? I'm not good enough to work for SF Racing. I mean,
well, we want to hear your opinion.
I agree with you, Frank. All right. Well, he's Frank Angst over at BloodHorse.com. What's up? We're talking OBS sales and those kinds of things on the sales side of things at this point. I know we'll get more into those as we get I think it's about, man, only 2 weeks to the 2-year-olds in training sale here.
Yeah.
But I'm
Everything's
sure
going so quick this year.
it feels like it, at least. Frank, any updates on the sales page over at BloodHorse?
No, I know we have some good shows planned here
Yes,
ahead of OBS April, both ahead of it and during and right before it and during. So looking forward to that. OBS March was a nice sale for sure. Everything going on in Florida, that was good with the decoupling issue, but that was good to see. There's people still have confidence and stepped up, and it was a good sale, and looking for more of that in April.
Yeah, it's interesting too. Big group leaving from Tampa tomorrow to go to Tallahassee as well. It looks like they're going to get a couple bus loads and get people up at the State House there in Tallahassee in Florida. So good luck to them on their efforts against decoupling there in the state of Florida as well. Frank, last one will get you out of here. How's your bracket?
Oh, it was long done. I went with St. John's, and because I generally default to the Big East. Okay. Which has been very profitable in recent years, but not so much this year.
All right.
I will be talking with Mike Rapole Derby week to see what went wrong there. But no, I mean,
get together, Mike. What are we doing here? Come on, a little more vitamin.
Story. Mike was a big supporter of St. John's basketball, but one and done. There's no forgiveness there.
Done in the first weekend, you get out of here. You know who's never done on the first weekend? Frank Angst. You go check him out at bloodhorse.com. Go check out all those great things there. He's also got the best, that's the best bookshelf in horse racing. It is what it is. Yeah, it is. David's got beautiful brickwork. Frank's got beautiful books. Thank you, Frank. We'll talk to you next week, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
There you go. Frank Angst with us at bloodhorse.com. It's interesting when he talks about the NTRA poll, and I don't know if you have a strong opinion on this about older horses. I'm not mad at the Torpedo Ann and the number one spot thing at all. That doesn't bother me. But the older dirt male thing hasn't materialized in the way that I thought it was going to, only because Sierra Leone doesn't run great on debut in 2025. Whatever. I'm not going to hold that against him. We haven't seen fierceness yet.
Yeah.
Mystic Dan did what he did in the Malibu, right, in December.
And then the Pegasus.
And then in the Pegasus, right? So we haven't seen that great performance yet from any of the 4-year-olds per se. But Mindframe comes back. Gulfstream Park Mile looks really great. Is White Abarrio just the class right now?
Right now he is, but it's going to be interesting.
It's a long time till November.
It's a long time till November, and also the older male division is now going to switch to where it's really centered in New York going forward. You're going to have the Met Mile coming up at Saratoga. You're going to have, the Whitney, the Woodward, Jockey Club Gold Cup, all those big races. And so when fierceness comes back into it, when Sierra Leone, now that he's got this race under his belt, I think things are going to start changing here. White Abarrio, I know he won the Whitney a couple years ago, but I'm not I don't love him at the 1-turn distances. I haven't really liked his runs in the Met Mile in the past, that race in the Saudi Cup.
He explodes out of that second turn. You're right.
Yeah.
He
So,
really does.
when we get to a race like the Met Mile, I wouldn't be shocked to see one of these other ones step up, win that one. Then, maybe White Abarrio comes back and proves himself in a race
like a mind frame.
Get a mind frame in the Met Mile. You get a White
perfect
Abarrio bouncing back potentially in a race like the Whitney. And so I think definitely at this point, White Abarrio is the head of the male division for the older horses, but I would expect someone else to look like they're about to take that spot after the Met Mile, and then see whether White Abarrio is going to come back and remain in that top spot the rest of the year.
Keeneland opens this week.
Yes.
Which is always the goodbye winter moment for me.
We're in spring now.
I made a joke on Twitter the other day, and I'm very proud of it, so I want to bring it to this show. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
So I made the claim that the Punxsutawney Phil moment for Louisville is when they changed the Derby sign to the new Derby 151 this year.
As a Pennsylvania resident, I can respect that.
Do you love that?
Yes.
Okay. As a guy who's from Pennsylvania and loves horse racing.
Yes.
Referring to the Derby sign as our personal groundhog that we hold up.
I approve of that.
Okay. Right.
Yes.
Aaron Rodgers thought that was very funny. So shout out to the guys at Churchill. I think we'll stick with that going forward. But what that also means with Keeneland opening is it's the end of 100-point season this weekend. You and I will be at different preps. I will be in New York at the Wood Memorial. You will be here in the Bluegrass at Keeneland. Interesting fields in all of them.
Yeah.
The Bluegrass is loaded.
It's
the Santa Anita Derby is wildly loaded. And there's tons of potential in the Wood Memorial. I think that's the best word for the Wood Memorial.
And don't forget, we got Dubai this weekend.
And UAE Derby. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, it is.
And that was loaded too.
Loaded this weekend.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is there one in particular that you're most looking forward to, and why is it the Santa Anita Derby?
You knew exactly which one. It's been a couple years, I think, and part of this is because Baffert's been suspended, and if his horse is running in the Santa Anita Derby,
Yes.
you haven't really been able to care from a Derby perspective. You haven't been able to care too much about those races the last couple of
Like
years.
Stronghold's a good horse, but he's not what we think of as a modern Santa Anita Derby winner.
Yes,
Right.
And like the years before that, where Baffert was winning, and like you had Taba come back and he ran with Yaktine in the Derby and stuff, but it hasn't been that same feel. It's been a while since I felt like the Santa Anita Derby has been like this. And it feels like a matchup of titans. You have the champion, the 2-year-old champion coming back this year. He's still, he ran phenomenal in his first race back. So what is he going to do here when he's matching up against a horse like Journalism, who was the last future wager favorite last time they had the future wagers. So I feel like it's really set up to be kind of this clash of titans. And then, you also have Barnes,
right?
Everybody's been high on Barnes. You're going to get to see,
and the talent's obvious with him. You can see it when he runs.
Yeah.
Yes,
and we're going to get to find out who he actually is this weekend. Is he going to be that longer distance horse? Is he going to be one that maybe you're going to want to cut back? And you also have a horse like Beza, who's got the bloodline of an immaculate bloodline. His 2 half brothers have gone on to win Triple Crown races in the last 2 years. He's going to need a first or second to get into this race or into the Derby. But when you look at that kind of supporting cast to already what's going to be a great matchup of Citizen Bull, I think, Citizen Bull could run the race of his life, and you still feel like Journalism might be able to run him down,
right?
Because Journalism might be that good. So I think this is set up. I think whoever wins this race between really the top 3, but even potentially Beza, depending on how he wins, I think if any one of those 4 wins this race, they are the Kentucky Derby favorite.
Okay.
And I think that's why this race is going to be so exciting.
Had Sovereignty won the Florida Derby, would your take be different?
No.
Okay.
I think
would not have mattered to you.
It would not have mattered. I think this race is
as far as the betting favorite. I'm not saying for you as your favorite, but just
as a betting favorite. I think it's been set up since Journalism won the San Felipe. The way that he won the San Felipe, I think it is set up for this race to be the deciding factor when it comes to the Kentucky Derby favorite.
Interesting. Okay. Journalism currently 14th in points because he got a reduced number of points for winning in the San Felipe. I don't think he's going to miss the field in the Derby if he doesn't hit the board here. But man, the number of points to qualify for the Kentucky Derby seems higher this year, Sean, than in past years. What do you think the bottom cut number is going to be? Journalism, by the way, at 47.5. Madicket Road at 46, tied with Getaway Car. That's 2 Bafferts that might get cut this weekend. Should we get, frankly, like a UAE, we don't usually get the second place finisher shipping over here. But if we did, that takes a spot. If, we get a couple of upsets in the wood, which is not outrageous, that moves 2 more spots down. I mean, Getaway Car, just in that scenario, by the way, is 19th.
Yeah.
Journalism moves to 18th in that scenario, man. And I haven't mentioned Luxor Cafe, who won in Japan over the weekend, is going to take a spot. We're going to find out tomorrow or Wednesday on that. I'm just saying, I think there's actually motivation in here for Journalism. And look, it's a grade 1. I talked about this last week with Sovereignty when people were like, oh, we don't know if they're going to wait. No, they're not saving him for the Kentucky Derby. That's 20 horses. You don't know what's going to happen at Churchill Downs. You win a grade 1 when you can win a grade 1, right? And that's what Frank was just saying in the previous segment is, no, you win a Louisiana Derby. That's a big deal. An Arkansas Derby is a big deal. Santa Anita Derby, same thing.
Yeah, it's a big thing. And the points, the point system came into play starting for the 2013 Kentucky Derby. And there's been a lot of changes to it over the last decade. And we always look at that 40 points as kind of the magical number. That used to be what you got for finishing second in these final prep races. Last year, they made that change to where you get 50 points for running second. They increased all the second place points throughout the entire series. And I think we're at the point now. Last year, because of horses scratching, because of horses dropping out, under 40 points, I believe there were still like a couple of those bubble horses that got in with less than 40 points.
We've seen 38 and 37 before.
And it might end up being the same way this year if we have some dropouts, but I think for that safe zone of knowing that you're in the race, I think it's time that we start saying 50 points is the safe zone going forward. Because one of these years, like everybody's kind of looking at it like, somebody's going to drop out. One of these years, horses are not, and you're going to need 50 or more points to get into the race.
Because with 700-point races, that's 14 spots.
Yeah. And you're looking
that's a lot.
I mean, right now, Chancellor McPatrick is sitting in the 19th spot. We're not counting the 20th spot because that's probably going to be taken by Luxor Cafe off the Japanese invite. Chancellor McPatrick sitting 19th at 35 points. And you have 2 invites going to the Dubai horses this weekend. So that right there, as you said, that puts the bottom point at 46-45. And now I look at it as Citizen Bull and Journalism are probably going to take points this weekend. They are already above that threshold, so that's not going to play a big impact. But you have quite a few horses in like a race like the Bluegrass, East Avenue, and Burnham Square, and horses that have points but they don't have enough. And so even if they run, maybe not East Avenue, I think only has 10, but you look at a Burnham Square who I think is sitting about 30 right now. He runs 4th, and that puts him up at 45 points. So, you're looking at where quite a few, and same thing out there with the race at the Wood Memorial. You have a horse like Omaha. If he gets a 3rd, if he gets a 4th, that puts him above 40 points. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how the bottom of this point system will shake out. It's possible if you get all new horses that are not in the top 20 right now that finish in these top spots, it could be possible a horse like Flying Mohawk, who has 50 points, gets bumped out of the top 20. If you have both the Dubai horses come over, you have the Luxor Cafe come over from Japan, it's possible to where that 50 points now all of a sudden is not looking 100% certain. So I'm sure this will all shake out, as we have horses who maybe decide to go, to the shorter distance. You're looking at horses like Built, potentially the Getaway Car, the Madaket Road, where maybe they would decide to go a Pate Mile instead. But, there's that pole of the Derby, and if they stay in this point, the points are going to get very interesting here. 4 prep races this weekend. You have the Lexington with the final 20 points to the winner next week. That could turn into a huge spot if some of these guys that are sitting on the bubble decide, let's try and guarantee we get in. Let's go to the Lexington. American Promise is already in. He's heading there. But if we get any of these other horses heading there, this is the part where I get super interested, is the analyzing how the points are going to shake out.
It's something I love about your interviews is that you're willing to ask trainers, hey, take me inside trying to get points here.
Yeah.
And we watched, a West Saratoga last year navigate from the Iroquois all the way to the starting gate in the Derby.
Just picking up small amounts of points.
Just 3rd, 4th place all the time. And we don't have that this year, largely. It seems like we're getting big chunks, but I think they did the points change to get rid of horses like West Saratoga. And I don't know if I like that or not.
Well, I think that the big problem was the horses that ran second. It was because the thing that happened was when they changed it from the top 4 finishers to the top 5 finishers getting points. And when they did that, there were, I think it was the 2023 Derby, there were the horses that finished second in the final round of prep races that should have definitely been in the race that were on the bottom of the points boards because they only had 40 points. So I do think it does guarantee that you're getting those top horses in. I love having kind of those horses like the West Saratogas, but this was the same point system last year for West Saratoga, and he made it in. So those horses can still get in. But
by the way, Larry and Dante and all the people that were connected with West Saratoga,
phenomenal,
awesome. Really, like
that was the highlight of my Derby last year, was getting to talk to them.
Yeah, it was spectacular. The ownership was great. I mean, so I'm not. By the way, I'm not putting that down. What I'm saying is actually I'm in favor of that. Like you joked about 16 seeds.
Yeah.
Like it's nice that West Saratoga's a 10 seed. He's an 11 seed, right? I mean, he really is, and that's okay. Like it's okay to have those kinds of horses in. And frankly, I don't want us to get away totally from, a guy like Larry DeMerit, Rich Strike or whatever. Yeah. But Larry DeMerit did an incredible job getting into the Kentucky Derby starting gate. And I just don't want that to go away.
Rich Strike does not get into the Kentucky Derby off the current point system.
Okay, good point.
Yeah.
And
so you do need a little bit of that. Make sure the long shots can get in. Now, the part that
I think a lot of people listening would say good.
Yeah.
No, but I think that's how they feel.
Yeah, I think so too. But also, you look at the impact that Rich Strike had on the non-racing fan, just the general sporting public, the general public. I think you kind of need to have a horse like that in there.
Frank back in with us. Anything to add to this, Frank?
One thing I think that's important to remember is, unfortunately, you always have horses that come up with little issues, and they're not going to make the race. So that always factors in. That's always going to get a few other horses in. So I think if your horse is moving forward, you prepare like you're going to go to the race and see how it falls out. We've had several horses make the field using that approach in recent years.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by this. In the same way that people are upset about the brackets and not enough Cinderellas and all those things. I don't care. I want the best teams in the Final Four.
Yeah.
I think all of us sitting here want the best horses in the Kentucky Derby. I think it's worthwhile to have the conversation about the best way to do that. I do think, okay, let's just kind of round table real quick on this. I'm pro point system. I think it's a good idea. I don't think the graded stakes earnings could be grass and Tapeta, whatever. Like I don't know. That one is less interesting to me. Now it makes the handicapping way more interesting for sure. But I like the road to the Kentucky Derby. I like seeing the different tracks all lead to one race, because in horse racing, it's so parochial and whatever else, LA, Miami, New York, whatever, all having the same goal of sending a horse to Louisville, I think is very cool. So I like the point system that way. I will defend it. I think it's a good idea. What says Sean Collins?
I love the point system.
Okay.
Yep. I have loved every step of it. They've made adjustments to it. You can question maybe some of those judgments. But I do really like the point system. I like kind of having that set goal, knowing what you have to do in order to get into the race. And, this the bottom of the points board changing over the last 2 years, it's a learning curve, and people will react to that and they will prepare differently potentially in future years. I love the point system. I like that it kind of gives you a sense of being able to really follow the top contenders.
I agree with that
from an earlier stage than maybe, people like us that watch racing year round. We're keeping an eye on the maiden races of 2-year-olds, but for, the general racing fan who doesn't pay as close attention, it's nice to kind of have these set spots. I love the point system. I definitely think that is the way to go as far as making sure that they're qualifying into the Derby. The real interesting part this year, as you mentioned earlier, I didn't get back to this point, but with journalism, is the reduced points.
Right.
Is that going to play an issue? It ended up not being a big issue on the Oaks side for Good Cheer because she won the final prep race, but is that going to start playing an issue at some point here? That's the only part of the point system I'm a little on the fence about, is the reduced points for the smaller fields. But in general, I love the point system.
Yeah. All right. Good take. Frank, what say you?
I'm good with using graded stakes or points to figure out who goes. I think the points are probably easier to follow for people to kind of pick this up in April, which I totally get. It's a race that the entire continent identifies with. So we want to welcome those people, even if they want to join us just for the Triple Crown. We hope they stay on, but we welcome that. The thing that I really like is we're not counting the sprints anymore. We're not counting turf races. I think the prep races that award the points are the right races. So that's been good to see.
Yeah. And even, with the addition, and I said turf and Tapeta there, at least the Ruby has given us quality horses out of that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for Tapeta, I like that there is still a way for the Tapeta horses that, the all-weather horses to make the race. I've always said that. Animal Kingdom was the best 3-year-old that year, at least for that time, for sure. He went on to a lot of, win the Dubai World Cup and what have you. So a serious horse for sure. He wouldn't have qualified if there wasn't an all-weather way to get into the race. So you want to have that. You've had some other horses come out there and get placings. I do like that there's still that exists for sure.
There you go. All right. Well, thanks, Frank. We appreciate you, buddy. I want to thank our friends at OBS one more time. And OBS continues to be the 2-year-old source. 9 graduates from OBS April have won Grade 1 stakes since 2024. The most recent is Cavalieri winning the prestigious Beholder Mile. The April sale will be held April 15 through 18. And the Undertack is set for April 6th through 11th. Man, that is 7 days from now. How about that? Getting that Undertack going down there at OBS. Really appreciate them hanging out with us here on BloodHorse Monday. And of course, go find them at OBS, and all easy to find on the internet and bloodhorse.com, all those sales tabs and all the things we got going on. Of course, tons of coverage of that sale as well as we get into April, kind of the appetizer for the Triple Crown, the OBS sale, right?
I'd say so.
Yeah, a little bit there.
We're finding next year's Triple
Crown.
It's
our NFL draft combine is what it is.
We're finding next year's Triple Crown horses before we've even run this year's Triple Crown. That's the part that I love about this sport, is you have all this build up to the Triple Crown, and as soon as you get to it, you can start getting the build up for next year's Triple Crown. It's starting even before the Triple Crown. So.
All right. Well, he's Sean Collins. I'm Louie Rabaut. This has been another edition of BloodHorse Monday. By the time we get back, we will probably know about 19 of the 20 starters in the Kentucky Derby. Maybe one sneaks in the Lexington the week after. Sean will be up there at the Bluegrass. I'll be at the Wood Memorial. We'll share our experiences next Monday with you as well. Louie Rabaut, Sean Collins. This is BloodHorse Monday. We'll see you next week.
The BloodHorse is dedicated to the improvement of thoroughbred breeding and racing for over 100 years. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and save BloodHorse Monday on all your platforms. For the latest news, analysis, and insights, visit us at bloodhorse.com.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.